The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
It's Tuesday, the 17th day of August, 2021. Welcome to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical Wells One Communications and Lindos. I'm Jamal Hartman, along with Michaela Ian, and of course, Leanna Lambert will be with us in a bit to bring us the latest in her news break. Michaela, it's the second day of the traditional work week. How goes it?
Whew. It goes good. That's all I'll say.
It goes well. I'm gonna share something. So you shared you were on your way back this morning and you got at the stoplight. And I must say, Martha's Vineyard, I was there last week and they don't have any traffic lights on the island. I think Bermuda has this contagious virus or something where they feel like they need to have stoplights, like traffic lights everywhere, like everywhere. You can't avoid it.
Everywhere. Like I say, so I leave home early, as you know, to take my son to school, to nursery school. There's a light Harrington Sound. So this morning I got stopped. I was like, okay, but I left early. Cool, no problem. So I'm like, maybe coming back, I'll beat it. Nope. Nope. But it's lights there. And then there's lights on Harrington Sound Road.
Yeah.
And then there was a light coming into Ferry Reach for months, and then a light coming out of Ferry Reach just before the bridge for 6 months. It's just a lot.
I always used to see it on social media, but now I understand it. I get it. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for making us part of your daily routine. Another good one today as we welcome the Minister of Education, the Honorable Diallo Rabain, back to the show. So that this is going to be interesting because I've seen you having your marches and or meetings and all that stuff going on. So it should be interesting.
Yes.
The daily play is a remember when, so Michaela is guessing the year. These are good ones when we do this. These are good ones. But we're welcoming Leanna back today. Obviously, Michaela and I spoof on the news. Just tells you how valuable Leanna is after yesterday. But that said, we hadn't had a chance to talk about the county game, so we'll bring that up a bit. And I think the minister is a Cleveland County fan. So
he is a Cleveland fan. Yes.
Yeah, we will. Oh, to be fair, I think every neutral was rooting for Cleveland County this past weekend, and the way the game went down to the wire, I think that's what people want in cut match, competitive excitement.
Yes, that's what we want. So I don't really go county game too much, to be honest, but I'm not a neutral. I grew up in St. David's. I am not a neutral at all, but
Well.
Listen, I can't help where my family came from. Can't help it.
Well, I think we all have a team. I think we had the trivia question this past weekend on the Daily Hour's Facebook page, and it was who of the hosts was for Cleveland County, who's supporting Cleveland County, and people were saying Larry, and I'm like, folks, if you watch the show, it was Sherry. Larry
definitely
and I,
Sherry.
Yeah, Larry and I would be Bay. Obviously, Leanna is Flats. You'd be St. David. So it was Sherry. The answer is Sherry, and I'll have to go back to see who the winner was. But Sherry was the so she took a win at cup match, and she captured an L at Coney game, and
It is.
it's okay. But folks, thanks again for joining us. That's not our topic this morning, unfortunately, but we'll make sure we touch on it in a bit when we bring on the Minister and Liana. But there's more happening. There's so much going on in the world. The situation in Afghanistan is just tragically sad.
Yeah.
The videos, the pictures, and then on there's we mentioned Canada yesterday as far as requiring vaccinations to come in, right? And it looks like I did you read the article about Turks and Caicos?
I did. Turks and Caicos have been no nonsense for a while.
Turks and Caicos looks like they'll be doing something very similar, right?
Yeah.
And I guess the question of the morning for the audience, and again, this is not about Bermudians, so I'm not saying should Bermudians be, right? So be very clear. Here's your question. Should Bermuda implement a vaccinated-only policy for visitors? Should they follow the likes of Canada, Turks and Caicos, and others that I probably don't know of, but others may follow suit?
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that Bermuda should implement, not for locals again, do you believe Bermuda should implement a vaccinated-only policy for visitors to the island? What are your thoughts?
Here's what's interesting, right? Because who is coming here as a visitor that isn't vaccinated right now? Because if I wasn't vaccinated and I looked at Bermuda and I said, oh, I've got to do a 14-day quarantine, plus I have to get tested every 4 days or whatever, why on earth would I go there?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I think that's an interesting part of it. But when we look at the science, and again, I am not a doctor, I am not a scientist. I'd love to have Dr. R. Scott come back on and chat about this. But when we look at the science, sure, vaccinated people can get COVID and can spread COVID. However, as a vaccinated person, if I were to get COVID, especially the Delta variant, I'd be okay. So if I go to Turks and Caicos, for instance, and I were to get COVID, the likelihood of me needing to be hospitalized and taking away a bed from someone local is slim to none. So I think that's what it is. When we think about these places where, tourists are going, etc., you got to think about the healthcare system. Like right now, Hawaii, Native Hawaiians are telling people don't come to Hawaii because they just can't handle it. Meanwhile, everybody's trying to go to Hawaii. And then we saw what happened in Puerto Rico. I don't know how many people follow what's going on, but a lot of Americans were going to Puerto Rico, mainland Americans going to Puerto Rico. And then Puerto Rico's cases surged as a result. So they've also implemented the same policy. I think it's in effect from September 1st as well. So I'm a fan of do what you've got to do to ensure that your local economy and healthcare system can handle it.
So Bermuda should implement it, you're saying?
From a science point of view and from a healthcare point of view, I've been in ICU. I see how little beds there are. If it's good, if there is evidence that backs up the fact that doing this is good for the economy and for our healthcare system, because that's what I keep thinking about, our healthcare system. If we have a lot of sick visitors in Bermuda, that means we don't have space for locals who would get sick. And that's what I always think about.
Gotcha. All right. So you heard from Michaela. Should Bermuda implement a vaccinated-only policy for visitors? Nachiko Trot says no. Mary Lee Watson says yes, they should. Monique Hartman says Grenada is vaccinated only as well. Cindy Swan says yes. Shika Reyna says Bermuda basically already has a vaccinated-only policy for visitors. But I want to go back to what Michaela said because, folks, we traveled into Bermuda on Saturday. Of course, I don't follow rules like I should, and somebody put me in charge, so we didn't have everything done. I'm not going to blame the government for my what I chose to do or what I didn't do. I blame them for enough stuff already, right? But anyway, that said, it's a challenge. Traveling is a job in itself right now. If I actually give props to people who are continuing to travel on a regular basis right now, because it's a job on top of traveling right now to go get this test. And I haven't even spoken about that. I think Bermuda's testing policy is stupid. I do.
Yeah.
And I say stupid because I got a test before I left the US. Why should I have to take one the day I arrive? I get the 4-day one, right? I get that, but it's stupid. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
It's overkill.
It's overkill. That's one of the reasons I haven't traveled yet, is because of the ridiculous testing regime. But
I personally think Bermuda is in overkill mode when it comes to the testing. But again, that's not to say that. I mean, I can draw my own conclusions and my theories and come up with it. Comes across as it's for money, blah blah blah, blah whatnot. But at the end of the day, I'm one person who has disagrees with it. It's not going to change anything. But that said, I do believe that traveling to Bermuda right now is almost like, well, I wouldn't want to do it unless I was vaccinated.
Exactly.
So I get the point that Shikarina is trying to say. Emily Gale Dill says, TNC, I believe that she's talking about Turks and Caicos. Travel authorization is free to all travelers. Interesting.
That's because they're probably not doing the testing like we are. So the argument for the cost of the TNC, I mean, for the travel authorization that I've always heard is that it covers the cost of the multiple tests. Well, do we need all the tests?
Interesting. Sean Smith and Carla John McKayla.
Sure. Remember, before the vaccine was available, 99% of people who had COVID fully recovered. So no.
Well, see, this is something that I challenge also. This is not true, Sean Smith. And here's what I mean it's not true. I think we tend to believe that recovered means someone didn't die.
Agree.
When there are numerous, and we don't speak about this, the media doesn't report it, right? But when you have family members that did contract COVID, they legit could just about walk anymore. Now they're having complications. I do question why we don't talk about the complications that come from being diagnosed with a disease, right? The way we speak about those who have gotten the vaccination and they've had complications. See, we haven't, and science hasn't shown what the long-term effects of having COVID are.
There's been a lot of studies and things that I've read about it. And it's shocking because you have people who are healthy and they now have lifelong complications. You have people who are healthy who have not been vaccinated, got the Delta variant and died. So yeah, I'm all for protecting Bermuda, protecting Bermudians. And I would not be surprised if we went this route, and I wouldn't be mad at it.
Yeah, I didn't quite finish. I do not support Bermuda taking that position of implementing a vaccinated only policy for visitors. I don't personally support it, but that doesn't mean that it's not the best. And let me say that again, folks. Just because I don't personally support it doesn't mean I don't think it's probably not in the best interest of Bermuda. Two different things. They can both be true. And I hope you pick the bones out of that. Carla John McKayla.
Colleges and universities are beginning to impose vaccine mandates for anyone who wants to go on campus. So it makes sense that Bermuda wants to be for vaccinated travelers only. Yes. Yeah.
Can the Bermuda economy handle it business-wise, tourism-wise, Samcat Place? Well, it's interesting because it goes back to the discussion last year when the pandemic first came about, is economy or health. You know, it's like people feel like it has to be either or. Karen Edwards Simmons.
There are numerous people who have recovered, meaning not die, but are still suffering the effects, which will last a lifetime. So I just want to go back to Samcat Place's point. Who's coming here for business travel if you're not vaccinated? No one. Who's coming here as a tourist if you're not vaccinated? No one. No one.
Well, with what they have to go through, come on. I mean,
let's be frank. No one is doing that.
Yeah. This is an interesting question. Shikarina is asking, will insurance cover these long-term effects? So now we're getting into it, right? Because look, we've had the conversation about whether or not companies will start to implement policies saying that their staff need to be vaccinated. Now, insurance companies, think of how some insurance companies, both in Bermuda and overseas, treat cigarette smokers. Like cigarettes have a long-term effect. And they may say, well, have you smoked? We may add $1 or $2 to that. But it's interesting because they may say, if you're not vaccinated, we're not going to cover anything that happens to you. Can they do that? Is it ethically right?
Well, I mean, insurance companies seem to be masterminds at this sort of thing because no pre-existing conditions, right?
I think my biggest issue is I feel like although people are saying that the vaccination isn't forced, I don't like the strong arming that it comes across as. I feel like if you educate people enough, they'll make the best decision for themselves, and they can seek they can seek medical advice from their doctors and honest doctors.
But I also feel like a lot of people are probably getting medical advice and then they're ignoring it,
this is true.
They say, oh, well, go talk to your doctor. Your doctor says you should get the vaccine. And then you go, actually, no, I don't think I need it. Okay.
Yeah. No, I get you. Sean Smith says, I had a family member who died from the vaccine. Well, that is very sad, and condolences to you. I say this much. Percentages are, we had the chat about statistics last week, right? Stats. I want people to keep in mind, statistics, numbers will tell you any story they want you to believe.
Yeah.
Depending on who's selling the story. Renee Sherlin, Simmons, Michaela.
Long-term complications from the vaccine will take 2 to 3 years, so no one knows nor has statistics of the complications from the vaccine.
Yeah, no one has the long-term complications of the vaccine nor of COVID. That's the challenge, right? So it's basically scientists telling us based on what they believe,
right? What they know now.
On the early signs. So it's an either or, right? It's an either or. And I get the concerns about the vaccine. I completely get them. And the reason I get them even more is here's the two questions I have about the vaccine where I would agree with people. Number one, no government, I shouldn't say that, Canada's different, but not many governments who are pushing the vaccine have done anything to lower healthcare costs. So why is it all of a sudden you're giving this free? So that's one question I have, right? I get that from people. Number two is not everyone who is refusing this vaccine is an anti-vaxxer. Some people say, you know what? No, I've had vaccines for college because those vaccines have been around longer. There's been more studies and examples. This is just too soon. I honestly completely get those folks. I get it. I'm not here to tell you you're stupid, you're wrong. I understand. The challenge is right now, you're literally choosing which long-term effects you believe are going to be better for you.
Right. And that's the thing that's difficult because I just feel like we have to be realistic in that we're likely all going to get COVID. You know what I mean? So it's like you kind of have to choose your poison. Are you choosing COVID long-term complications, or are you choosing, you know what, I'm going to get a vaccine and kind of hope for the best, and then if and when I get COVID, I'll be all right? Because we have to live with it. It's not going anywhere. There's only a matter of time before more variants are found. Everybody's going to get COVID. So it's just like we kind of got to pick which one we want.
Yeah,
as bizarre as it sounds.
Let's get through these comments before we bring Leanna in. Charles H. Jeffers II, Michaela.
I don't think an arrival test is too much. One can test up to 4 days before traveling to Bermuda, which means you have 4 days post-testing to contract COVID. I think going to arrival testing and days 4 and 10 is good.
Well, I don't, Mr.
See, I'm actually not mad about the arrival test. I'm mad about the subsequent test after that.
I am not interested. That doesn't mean I'm right, folks. Keep in mind. Pyramid Christine, I think that should be Christine Pyramid, but yes, I believe everyone should be vaccinated when entering Bermuda. In the long run, it may be better for our tourism numbers. Teresa and Cindy, and then we'll bring Liana in, Michaela.
If one can show their test was taken within the previous 24 hours of travel, maybe the schedule should be adjusted to alleviate the feeling of over-testing. But that's difficult because you can't get results that fast.
Yeah, I didn't have my results.
It don't work like that.
I legit got my results from the US and my results from Bermuda within minutes. No lie. No, and I'm just like, this is so ridiculous. But that was me because I didn't get it in the time I was supposed to get it. Do not do what I do, folks. I am not your role model or example. I'm Cindy Swan. Yeah.
Correction, I had a family member die from COVID way before the vaccination was available. Okay.
Uh,
Condolences to you and
Condolences
yours.
to you. And let's close it out. Carol Marks says, not everyone who has had COVID suffers long-term complications, long haul COVID. No, and I don't think anyone's saying that. What we don't know is the effects of COVID or the vaccine long-term is the point that we're making, Carol. So no, let's bring Leanna into the conversation. I'm sure she travels and might have an opinion. Hey, Lee, how you doing?
I am great. Good morning, guys. I missed you yesterday.
We
Yeah,
miss you dearly.
the audience missed you as well. Lee, how was your birthday weekend?
I had an amazing birthday. I mean, it was the longest weekend I think of my life. It might have trumped cup match, but I feel like it was well worth it. From working Connie game from 8:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. and then turning around and yes, doing a 5 a.m. breakfast cruise. Yes, guys, I said that right. 5 a.m. breakfast cruise.
5 a.m.
She must have energy or caffeine
Yeah.
lots of it. Because listen, sis, no,
If I would have sent the invite, you weren't coming.
no, boo. I
5
mean, I
a.m.
would
on a
have because it was
weekend.
your birthday, but you know.
5 a.m. on a weekend's extreme. So do you feel a year older?
I do. I feel a year wiser.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I
I'm
feel
gonna
a
get
year wiser. Come on now.
better with this. You know this. You know you don't touch on age, Jamel. Come on, you gotta get better. Sorry, I talk to myself sometimes. Well, look, Lee, it's honestly we're happy to have you back. One day it was a big miss. It felt like a month. Real quickly, just yes or no. Do you believe that Bermuda should implement a policy for vaccinated only visitors?
I'm I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place in this one. I would say this instead. I'm okay with the pre-arrival test and the arrival test. But after that, I feel like the testing regime is just a little bit unnecessary. Just my own opinion, but I don't believe that it should be one way for vaccinated and a different way for unvaccinated.
I think the consensus, honestly, is if you've traveled to Bermuda over the last, or you understand what it's like, you probably like, no, I'm just gonna get vaccinated because it's a bit different. But no, thank you for that. And obviously, Cleveland suffered the same fate as your Flats team. So now you're
I'm
leaving
still
it.
wearing green. See
Uh,
that?
no, I see, but now you're leaving it to Bayless Bay. He are the champions of the East to take that cup from Michaela St. David. So
Yeah.
don't worry, we'll handle St. David's for
It
you.
should be a good one, though. I'm looking forward to that final
I think
one.
I'll go to the final one.
All right, let's get to the news break. Lee, over to you.
Thanks, Jamal and Michaela, and good morning to all of those who are tuned in with us this morning. I hope everyone's having a great start to this slightly rainy and wet morning. I'm Leanna Lambert, and it's time for the Daily Hour News Break. So here's what's going on in today's top stories. The island will be going into its second day of no public transportation service as staff are continuing their strike today. Now, industrial action was launched yesterday morning by public transport staff after they claimed that a winter roster, which was scheduled to come into effect yesterday, was not posted by the Department of Public Transport. Now, it is understood that under the new schedule, public buses would not be used on school routes when the new term starts on September 9th, and this is what actually sparked the dispute. However, according to Minister of Transport Lawrence Scott, he told the Daily Hour that while both managers and Bermuda Industrial Union officials reached an impasse after their meeting yesterday, the new schedule is to bring about much needed change.
When it comes to privatization, no, we are not looking at privatization. It's not on the table. We believe that what we're doing now is a shift in business model. And so we're focusing on the public bus service. And so therefore, we're trying to provide a more efficient, more reliable bus service. And that means that we have to shift from the way we have always been doing it to a way that works better for the community and the bus industry or public service industry as it is today. because the schedule and the way we do business now is the same way we did business in 1990, 1995, 2000, 2010. I think we need to adjust with the times so that we can get that consistency and that reliability that everybody has been asking for.
Now, the minister is hopeful the staff will reach an agreement following arbitration and workers can return to the job as quickly as possible. In other news, it might just be the court case of the year to watch as Sophia Cannonier and husband Michael Watson yesterday had a date set for their trial. It is alleged that the two from Devonshire refused to comply with a mandatory quarantine and failed to complete a travel authorization form on July 11th. The couple, in a separate case, have also been charged with leaving their home on July 20th before the end of their mandatory quarantine. It is alleged Ms. Cannonier allowed unauthorized persons to visit her home on the same day. Now, we know that the two have denied all the charges. Magistrates court heard that disclosure for the July 20 charges had not yet been completed. Mark Daniels is the defense for the couple and said that his clients may join the two cases together. Magistrate Kamisi Tukumbo adjourned the case until September 27th to confirm whether or not disclosure had been completed and if the cases would be heard together. And Bermuda Pride is to throw a beach party to celebrate the island's LGBT people and supporters. Organizers released a statement yesterday saying that the pandemic had caused the group to plan a smaller celebration this year. However, they feel embracing their founding principles during these difficult times is more important than ever. They say, quote, "We hope the Beach Day event will be a safe and happy celebration for our LGBTQI plus community and allies," end quote. Now, this event is scheduled for August 28th at Cooper's Island in Castle Harbor from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. A large group exemption for the party has been approved by the government. Taking a look at today's weather, we have a high near 85 and a low near 76 degrees. Tropical storm Henry is about 140 miles to our southeast and will continue to take a clockwise track around the south of the island over the next few days as it intensifies. Now, winds could approach tropical storm force at times, especially towards the south of the marine area, and such a tropical storm watch remains in effect. Expect occasional spells of inclement weather, mainly from later this afternoon into Wednesday. That's all for our daily hour news break. Let's head back to Jamala and Michaela in the studio for today's Daily Focus.
All right, Lee, thanks so much for that. As your birthday week continues, and look, even if you don't celebrate, we're gonna celebrate you. So
Yeah, we've got some plans this week. I can't wait.
We
I get to see my
do.
family.
absolutely. But thank you so much for that, and you make sure you enjoy the rest of today, and we will see you tomorrow.
Thank you, guys. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
All righty, we're going to take a quick break and we will be back with the Minister of Education, Diallo Rabain.
Mom's celebrating her 70th birthday next month. Have you noticed her age is catching up with her?
Yeah. Plus, she's having a hard time getting up and around like she's used to. I would sure hate to see her fall.
At Medical House Limited, we can help make life situations easier. We have electric beds, motorized scooters, bath stools, walkers, you name it.
Mom's been real good to us. We'll get her birthday and Christmas gifts from Medical House.
Medical House has relocated next to the Dandytown Field, number 6 Bakery Lane, Pembroke. Telephone 292-3622.
John Barrett & Son, Bermuda's favorite distributor of fine beverages, has brought us a new and refreshing thirst quencher just in time for the approaching warm weather. Hint Water in 7 luscious flavors. Hint Water is slaking the thirst of active people who need pure hydration, low on the glycemic index, and want the kind of taste experience that keeps them coming back to try the next flavor. For those who've been giving water a miss, Hint may win you over. Hint Water. No sugar, no additives, all flavor. Lynn knows. Why go anyplace else?
All right, welcome back to the big show, Michaela Ian. I'm Jamal Hartman. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by Medical House, One Communications, Lindos, and our friends over at Channel 82, where you can stream this and many other locally produced shows. Time for the Minister of Education. He needs no introduction. He is probably the guest who has been on this show more than anyone else. I think at this point, we can say he's pretty much a correspondent as well. Welcome, Minister of Education, Diallo Rabain. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Jamal. Good morning, Michaela. And good morning to your listening audience. And happy belated birthday to Deanna. If I would have known, I would have wished her happy birthday when I saw her Saturday at Seabreeze Oval.
Absolutely. Well, speaking about Seabreeze Oval, I will say I was rooting for Cleveland.
Of course you were. You're a Bay fan.
Yes.
And with Bayless Bay, it's everybody but St. David.
Exactly. I don't know how Michaela and I make out days, but no, I say that because you know what Cleveland's been through this year, but also that batting performance by Dion Stovall is just it was spectacular, right?
It certainly was.
Yeah, and but that said, Cleveland always a good game, and you know, I wanted to see the celebrations from the mayor of Devil's Hill, but that's another show. But look,
you should have him on as a guest.
We would love to. He is the most entertaining character around Bermuda sports, I swear. But look, let's get right to it. Obviously, a lot's going on around education. You've been very open with us, come on and shared a lot of information with the audience, engaged with them especially. But I want to touch off with something that was recently, before we get into the conversation, from Mike Charles. According to the Royal Gazette, the outgoing Bermuda Union of Teachers General Secretary Mike Charles said, quote, "I always had a problem with the idea of consultation with this government," right? He went on to say, "I talk to ministers and it's more like information than consultation. This is what we are doing. It is all about politics, which shouldn't be a part of education. They need to let the educators take charge. Politicians are there to get themselves re-elected." What are your thoughts on what Mr. Charles shared, as this seems like it is echoed throughout the community at times?
Well, actually, guys, I was a bit disappointed in what we had seen. Since I became minister, I've reached out to the BUT on a consistent basis. We meet every term. We started meeting quarterly. Now we meet every school term. Everything that we have done with education reform, we've involved the BUT. In terms of, we talk about our Learning First program. I know that they meet with them on a monthly basis. We formed what we call, since COVID came about, and it was actually a suggestion of their bidding of forming the EEMC, which is like the EMO, that's Education Emergency Measures Committee, and it's something that meets on a regular basis to talk about the COVID response to this. I also meet with the union president on a monthly basis, and we have not done anything or move forward with anything before we have consultation with our stakeholders, which includes not just the BUT, but the BPSU and the BUT, because we have members of all of those unions. And since I've been minister, we've also put in place a process that before any announcements are made to the public. So before I do a press conference, before I do anything of that sort, all of our stakeholders are notified first. So they hear it from us first before the general public. And so when I did read that, I was a bit disappointed, because we've done quite a bit over the last couple of years of rebuilding that relationship and having our relationship with our union partners as we move forward. And so I would not say that they agree with everything that we're doing. I won't say that we agree with everything that they do, but there has always been open dialogue, and there's always been the opportunity to discuss any and everything whenever there was an issue. And so when I did read that, I was, what we tend to do in Bermuda sometimes is we take anecdotal stuff and make it the norm. And I can understand what he means by years past, but in the last 3 years, at least, it has been what I have considered a very cordial and open relationship, where we're able to pick up the phone on either end and make a call and say, "Hey, what's going on? Let's talk about it before it gets any different than where it is now."
Gotcha. Michaela.
Okay. So we're here to talk about the parish schools and all of that, right? So the first thing I want to ask you is, what myths about the closure of a number of primary schools would you like to dispel? Because I know there's been so much conversation in the community about it.
The biggest myth that I would like to dispel is that there will be any closures within the next 2 years. We have put that out there, and there's so many people who, regardless of what we say, still will send in questions of, okay, well, what do I do if schools close in 2021? But that is probably the biggest myth. What we've done is we've conducted a very, very extensive engagement and consultation process. We've come up with what we feel is the best way forward, and that way forward will not start to be implemented until after the next 2 years of schooling. And then that implementation we anticipate will take a minimum of 5 years to transition to. And so the biggest myth is that one day we'll wake up and all of our schools will be discontinued and everyone will be shipped off to another school. That is not how it works. There will be a transition plan that will start in some areas and finish in other areas. And so we will see a system that will be in a flux or a bit of a hybrid as we move along and do this. What we do know is we learned from what had happened when we brought about the middle school system, and we do not intend for that sort of trauma to our students, to our parents, and to our country to happen ever again.
Okay. So how will the closure of these schools actually benefit the community and the public school system?
Okay, well, first of all, we tend to try and move away from the closing of schools, because when people hear that, they immediately go into a space. We are doing what we're doing to rebuild our school system, rebuild our school buildings to match what it is that we've been doing to rebuild our curriculum, retool our teachers, and the like. And so for the last 18 months, when we've talked about things like the Learning First program and what we've been doing with looking at our curriculum, looking at how we teach, looking at how our children learn and what it is they do learn, we're now come to the point where we now need to get on with the part of, okay, we know where we're going in terms of the curriculum and that sort of thing. Now we need to start planning on how we can match the buildings so that curriculum can be actually delivered with fidelity. And so this is where we are. So when we talk about education reform, some people only pay attention when we talk about the discontinuing of school buildings. But it is so much more than that. It's the Learning First program. It's the introduction of the signature school, the signature learning programs within our senior schools. It's the creation of an education authority, which will put education at an arm's length from the political process. And then it is the creation of the parish primary school. So it's a huge undertaking that we've been very, very careful to be as methodical as we can as we move through this and create the situation where we are being as open and consulted and using consultation and engagement as the way to move forward. Because where we are now, we need everybody to move with us. We can't. This is not one of those things where there is a few people sitting in an office somewhere at the Department of Education or the Ministry of Education making decisions and then coming out and saying this is what we're doing. Everything that we do, everything that we plan, everything that we're going to do to move forward has to do, first of all, do one thing, and that is reflect what is best for our students, and two, have the buy-in of the wider public.
Okay, so when we talk about rebuilding the public education system and focusing on the betterment for students, why are we then closing the island's top performing schools in Georgia's Prep?
Well, high performance is not a quality, and ironically, if you see any of the interviews by Ms. Mary Lodge, former principal of St. George's Prep, she actually confirms what we've been saying all along, that performance at schools is not a criteria that you should be using to figure out whether a building is suitable to be redeveloped into the school of the future. There are so many factors that go into high perform of students at a school that are performing differently from students at another school. The Bermuda education system, as we know it now, is an inequitable system. And when I say that, it is that while we provide the same resources at every single one of our buildings, the students that attend our buildings are not the same. And so we have to have a different approach, and we have to be able to create a system that is equitable across the board to give all of our students an opportunity to succeed, not just the high-flying students. And so that's what we talk about when we talk about the reduction of the number of buildings we use, taking the same amount of money, because there are some people out there that are saying that we're doing this because we just don't want to spend any money. No, we're talking about taking the same amount of money, and instead of spending it on 18 buildings, we're going to be spending it on 10 buildings. And so we'll be able to create that equity throughout our system that is sorely lacking as we speak now.
Okay. So do you think that this change is going to be the overhaul that the public school system needs?
Well, remember, Michaela, everything that we're doing within our system can be tied back to Plan 2022. Plan 2022 is the strategic plan for planning for the education that was put together, again, with extensive consultation from the Bermudian public. And when we look at that plan, we look at it from the perspective of this is what the public asked for. Of course, over the years, things change within strategic plans, and they're always being updated to what is the problems you face now. But there is almost nothing that we are doing now that cannot be tied back to that original strategic plan. We are just taking the idea that plan was put together and said, this is what we want from the public of Bermuda, and we're putting that into action. Some things are slightly different from what we originally talked about. For example, we're now talking about a education authority, whereas the plan talked about there needs to be a governance system, some sort of governing systems in place that removes politics from education and makes and puts the educators in charge. We're doing that, but we're calling it now an education authority. It talks about special schools are needed because to fit the learning styles and profiles of our students. We're calling them signature schools, and we're introducing them as signature schools. So some of those things are there, and some things are being enhanced that are mentioned there that wasn't fully fleshed out in the plan itself. So we look at it from a perspective of giving the people what it is that they say that they want.
Okay, I appreciate that. So let's talk about confidence. We know that there are a lot of parents who send their children to private school, myself included. Do you feel that this rebuilding of the public school system will create more confidence for parents, people who have children now, people who are going to have children, to enroll them in the public school system?
Well, as I mentioned previously, Michaela, our system is inequitable. We have some students that come through the public school system that do phenomenal academically wise. We have some students that come through the system that do phenomenal when we talk about the trades and the technical subjects. But we do have some students that just don't get it either way. And so we need to create a system. And the only way that we can convince people to bring their children back to the public school system is to show them that there is a pathway for their child to succeed, whatever that success looks like. And so that is all we can do. And I'm very confident that with what we're doing with education, that will be a time where people look and say, you know something, that $20,000 that I'm spending to go to private school, my child could be in public school, get the same access to the things that they need to be successful in life. But I can still use some of that money that I was spending over there to enhance my child's experience in public school.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really like that answer. So thank you very much. Do you want to cut in, Jamal, or do you want me to go to the?
No, go ahead. I got some questions coming in, but go ahead.
Perfect. No, I just want to switch gears slightly because I know that people are asking this question. So currently students cannot return to school after traveling until a day 8 negative test. We know lots of people have been traveling this summer. August is a high travel month. Is this policy going to remain in place for the upcoming school year, or can we expect?
We are currently reviewing our COVID guidelines that have been sent to us by the Department of Health, and I will let people know that it's not just the public school, that it's both public and private school that have to adhere to these COVID guidelines. So we've had the guidelines for a couple of weeks now. The public schools have sent in their comments. Unfortunately, for the way the public school works, when it's summertime, our staff, they take their well-deserved break and they literally don't want to think about school. But we are in the process of collecting feedback from our school leaders, and the commissioner has promised me that we will have our stuff submitted to Department of Health by today, and the Department of Health has committed to having reviewed all of the comments that have come from the private and public school and have something back to us by Thursday. But when it comes, and that involves what happens within the school. So when we're talking about mask wearing, what happens while you're in classroom, class bubbles, and all of that sort of thing that you would be aware of, Michaela, but not sure Jamal would be aware of. But in terms of the travel policy, from my understanding, there's no intention of the government to change the travel policy of the 8 days. And that is, and actually I was reading that this morning. It is if a student is immunized, they can go to school if they have a pre-arrival test, they can go back to school after their arrival test.
Okay.
If a student is immunized and doesn't have a pre-arrival test, they can only go back to school after their 4-day negative test. And if a student is not immunized and travels, they can only go back to school after the 8-day negative test. And so those are the 3 sets of rules there. And then there's some other nuances if parents travel who are not immunized and come back, but if parents travel who are immunized and come back. And so it's laid out quite succinctly on the website on the travel guidelines for returning to school and camps. And so, what we don't want is, and we dealt with this last year, and we're looking at how we can improve upon it, was parents sending their children to school who have been exposed. Who have traveled, and they're quarantining at home, but they want to be at home in peace, so they're sending the children to school. And so we've had those instances. Fortunately for us, we did not have any incidences last year of COVID spread in a school until the end of term 3. And in most cases, in almost all of our cases, it was adult error and not children error.
Right.
In most of our cases that happened within school, the parents that exposed their child, or in some cases, there's some rule was not followed out of school, and it created an exposure that wouldn't necessarily have been created. So, I was very proud of the fact that we were able to do what we did, and that is open our school buildings last year. Most countries were unable to do that. And I know it became a bit tiresome for some people. It's like, because we were very pedantic about following the rules, and that was both public and private. But at the end of the day, the best place for our children are in schools.
Yes.
And the best place for them to learn is in school. And
Absolutely.
So what we really need people to understand is that if we have a outbreak in a school, that's not just the students that go home, it's the parents that go home.
Yeah.
And then it's attachments to the parents. And where it becomes devastating for us in the public school is, and I recently found this out, we have so many teachers who have spouses who are teachers, who have children that are in school. So you can see the knock-on effect. A class being pulled out, that has an effect on not just that class, but that teacher, and then that teacher's home, and they may have children that are at other schools, and then that has effect on that child.
Minister, I don't want to cut you off, but we want to get to the audience as we're running out of time. And
we always run out of time when I'm on your show. What's the deal with that?
I'm sorry.
We got to book you from 8 a.m. next time.
I tell him I'll come on every month if he asks me, but he only asks me once every 3 months.
No, that's not true. But Carmen Mitchell-Jones, she's asking, how will the heritage, culture, and history of these soon-to-be closed schools be honored?
And then thank you, Ms. Jones, former, I believe, librarian up at T and Tatum, the now closed T and Tatum. We are very, very concerned about the history and legacy of our schools. And it's something that became very apparent to me even before we started our consultation, the official Zoom meetings on consultation, because we got so much feedback, especially from West End, from persons when we released the document in December. And so it became something that was very near and dear to me, that we need to figure out a way to record this history. And there's one thing that I kept saying in the meetings, because people talk about the history of our buildings, Jamal, is my daughter attends Whitney Institute. If she wanted to write a report on Elliott Primary, a school that's been around for over 100 years, where does she go to get that information? And in most cases, outside of the Berkeley Institute, there is nowhere to go and get that information. So it's critical for us to not only record this data and this history because of what we're proposing with our primary school proposals that we have now, but when we think about schools that have gone on that no longer exist. We're talking about Howard Academy. We're talking about the Tech Institute, Robert Crawford, Bermuda High for Girls, St. George's Secondary. Those are schools that have a long and storied history as well. It's not written anywhere. So what we have done is we have put together, or in the process of putting together, what we call a legacy committee or historical legacy committee. And I don't want to prelude some of the people that we've talked to, but we've talked to some of the luminaries of historical data and gathering of historical data in Bermuda, and Bermudians who are not even in Bermuda, persons like Dr. Keto Swan, who's very enthusiastic of what we want to do and how we want to do this. And so we're looking to put together a committee that will advise on how we can record these histories, what's the best way to record these histories, especially the history of Black schools in Bermuda, and how we can have that so it's there and it's available for anyone to see. So things like morals within schools, monuments erected throughout the community of educators and education, oral histories recorded, written histories recorded. Homecomings is one thing that came up as well, and different things that we've already discussed. And so we're looking forward to doing this and doing it right to ensure that our primary school, which at the present, the youngest one is 48 years old, all of them have a history to tell, and that history needs to be told, recorded for our students to be able to read and for the years to come.
Indeed. You mentioned your daughter went Whitney. One of the questions that has come in, Whitney Institute Middle School was not mentioned. Will it be closed? And the second part of this question is, when Cedar Bridge opened in 2007, all teachers had to reapply for positions. Will a similar process be taken with primary school closures?
The thing with Whitney is in our middle school system, and we are yet to make decisions about the middle schools and which ones will remain, if not all of them, if not some of them, when we talk about moving, because the next phase is to have the decision around what schools will eventually become the new senior schools. With the new system, we'll have at the primary school level P1 through P8, and at the high school level, we'll have S1 through S5. So there's an extra year in there for some of the older people listening. From when I went to school was 7 years of primary and 5 years of high school. But in terms of what will happen with current teachers, we are committed to ensuring that our teachers are given the resources to do the professional development necessary to be productive and even more productive than they are now within our new system. We also anticipate that creating a new system will create actually additional job opportunities. There will be job descriptions that don't exist now that teachers can move into. And so there is no, and of course, anything along the lines of redundancies or anything that will happen will have to be governed by our collective bargaining agreement with the BUT. So there is no wholesale firing of everyone and everyone will have to reapply for their job. No, that's not the intent. The intent is to provide the opportunities for teachers to upskill themselves and be a part of the new system if that's what they choose to do. There's even we also understand that there might be some people who say, I'm just too old to do things differently, so I will take my retirement, and so we'll have some movement through attrition as well. So there's all sorts of opportunities, I want to say, for our educators as we move forward, and there will be opportunities and for them to do what needs to be done to ensure that they are part of the new system moving forward.
All right, and last question before you go, because I
gotta go already.
I don't have the article in front of me, and I know that current MP, I believe his mother was very outspoken about one of the schools being closed.
Yeah.
And it seems like some of the people in and around feel as if it's not consultation. It's like have a conversation, information, and just do as you plan on doing. Just speak to the people of Bermuda and let them know like why government has to operate in the manner it does. And I'm not one who holds on to things. I'm not about that kind of what is it, nostalgia? Like I'm not about buildings and like I went Prospect, so be it. Burn it down for like that. And I need that. I'm not even trying to cause controversy. Like I am not attached to buildings and whatnot. I'm more interested in how is the curriculum going to improve the ability for more and I'll be very direct, Black entrepreneurs, because it's mainly Black children in our public school system. What school is going to produce the next owner of the new bank or insurance company and so on? That's what I'm interested in, that kind of stuff.
And that's what I'm interested in as well.
So, but what will you say to people who maybe, and it's not just older people, but may feel like, no, this is my school. This is what is produced this in the community, that. I mean, you had people saying, look, Philadelphia, our first gold medalist went Port Royal, and that's going to be closed down. But, in the shortest way possible, just speak to those people and try to get them to understand why you have to operate in the way that you are.
Well, first of all, Jamal, it's, when we make decisions about education and what education is going to be in the future, we have to make decisions based on what's best for not just the students today, but the students of future generations. And those students will create their own memories, right? Just because something worked 20, 30, 40, or something was forced on you 20, 30, 40 years ago, doesn't mean that it is something that we have to continue only because this is what it was before. I look at it from the perspective that our forefathers that built these schools, and they were built because Black students in particular were not going to be given the opportunities in the traditionally white schools. They built these schools because they wanted equality. They wanted our students to have the opportunity to learn. We want to introduce that equality. That's what we want to do. We want to make our schools equitable. So there's no you better go to this school if you want to actually get ahead versus that school. We want all of our schools to be excellent. And so I get it. I get the emotional attachment. I honestly do. And I feel for them because, when you went through some trauma in your younger years, you remember that. And so when they talk about lack of engagement, I've lost count the number of emails I've responded to from Miss Manders up there in in Sandy's about West End. I've spoken to Miss Snaith Simmons personally on the phone on several times, even before we started the Zoom session. So I understand where she comes from. We've had additional Zoom sessions specifically for West Enders to come and engage with us. And so I get what they're saying in that particular instance. But at the end of the day, we have to make decisions of what is best for our children. And unfortunately, in Somerset, when we looked at it from a completely baseless criteria, when I say baseless, I mean a criteria that says we need to find what is the best site for in each parish to build a new school that will enable our children to become the entrepreneurs of tomorrow, to become the next leaders of tomorrow. The Somerset primary site was the better site. And so that's what we're going with. Now, you mentioned entrepreneurship, and it's interesting that you mentioned that. It's one of those things that when we talked about our signature programs, it was one on the list. But in the end of the day, the consultation, because people talk about we don't consult, the consultation that we got from the general public is that entrepreneurship needs to be something that's built within our curriculum from P1 all the way through to S5. And so we've removed it as a signature we've removed it as a signature in our senior schools and intend to have that as part of the curriculum from P1 through P5, because that's what the consultation said. That's what the people told us that we should be doing. Right. And so this is when people say that, it actually pains me to hear people say that, you guys are just saying it, but you're talking to us because you just want to talk to us. We're not. We're listening. And I want to leave you with this before you kick me off. Right? Education is not about improving education, and education reform is not about winning the next election. It's about the next generation. And that's where I stand on this. Anybody and anyone who's heard me speak about this, who's heard me talk about this, including my ministerial colleagues, including my caucus colleagues, will know that that is where I stand. It is about doing the right thing for our children right now, despite what people may think about me when it comes down to election time or whatever. I will know I'll be able to stand on my 2 feet and say that we did the right thing for our children as we move forward with this.
All right. Minister of Education, Diallo Rabain, JPMB, thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll be having more from you, especially as we enter the new school year next month. Sure. Please keep us updated. Any information that we need to get out to our audience, we are happy to get it out to them. So I'm sure we'll be in touch. Thanks again.
No problem. And thank you for having me on. Thank you, Michaela.
No problem.
Thank you, Janelle.
Thank you.
Talk soon. All right, we're going to take a quick break. If you enjoyed that conversation with the Minister of Education, you know what to do. Give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Don't go anywhere. A trivia question that's going to give you the opportunity to win something. Do not go anywhere. Stick with us.
Same smooth sounds, different name. BCG Radio, home of Bermuda's most engaging morning talk shows, The Daily Hour and Good Day Bermuda. Download the app available for Android and Apple devices. BCG Radio, your station for conversations and entertainment.
All right, thanks again to One Communications, Lindo's, Medical Halls, all our friends and partners that continue to support us. Time for the Daily Play, brought to you by Heineken 0.0. Great taste, no alcohol. Michaela, are you ready?
Ready.
All right, it was going to be an education question, but that would have been so easy for you. All right, the death penalty was abolished in Bermuda in what year?
1978.
Wow, you're way off. Woo!
1965.
You got further off. Help her out, folks.
1990.
You're getting closer, but
95.
So basically, Michaela doesn't know the answer.
I don't have a clue.
No one's guessed it. So I will tell you. The death penalty was one of the first things that after the PLP were elected that they focused
on. Serious?
There, but it was not, as far as I remember, it was forced on Bermuda by the UK, and it was 1999 that they
that's pretty outrageous.
In Bermuda. So 1999. Very few people got it.
Wow.
Yeah, 1999. And from what I remember, the British government basically forced it on Bermuda.
So they were just basically out here hanging black people. Okay.
No. It was black people that are hanging black people.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood.
The UK were pretty much like, we don't have it, so you're not going to have it.
Oh, wow.
If I remember correctly. And I'm not going to say who, but there are still some current MPs that were not in favor of ending the death penalty. You can do the research for yourself.
Let me do a little Googling after this.
Yeah,
buddy.
Yeah, there's one in particular that comes to mind. Anyway, final thoughts on today's episode.
I think it was a great conversation. I always love talking about education. I really appreciate the minister coming on and being very candid and very open. So I look forward to seeing what reforms are going to come, and hopefully it will bring about much needed change.
All right. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed all parts of the conversation. Obviously, the COVID vaccine is very, it's just a hot one that everyone's going to have strong opinions either side. As far as education, I'm not dismissing people's feelings about, their attachment to things. I'm not trying to dismiss your feelings because, everyone's going to be different. Everyone's experiences are going to be different. For me, though, I'm just more interested in what education produces in terms of individuals and how it benefits the economy long term. So from that standpoint, that's where I'm more interested in hearing from the minister or anyone in education. Tell me how these moves are going to improve the country because of what the country is producing through the public education system, which I think every Bermudian, whether their children are in public or private, they're paying for it. So they have an interest. Daily inspiration, Michaela. I know you've got something to send us off on our day.
I sure do. Your strength is greater than your struggles.
Oh, I like that one. Unknown.
All right.
Unknown? Who's that one?
Unknown.
I like that one. All right. Well, it's time to get on out of here. Don't forget, we still have a way to go this week. Some young influencers, Kaylin Castle, coming on tomorrow. We have the CEO of the Bermuda Tourism Authority, Charles Jeffers, coming on. No anonymous commenters on this show, Charles. And then on Friday, we're going to close it out with Shivon Lee from Dove and Butterfly. So that should be interesting as well. So thanks again to our partners, Medical Wells, One Communications, and Lindos, for ensuring that we're able to do this with you on a daily basis. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you tomorrow. She's Michaela Ian. I'm Jamal Hartman. My friends, do make it a great day. Peace.